Hello and welcome to MTG Another Look. Today I want to talk about some recent reprints from the Karlov Manor commander decks that you should take another look at before the new set, Junction, releases. This set of commander decks had a lot of great reprints that brought the price down on cards that have been quite expensive for a long time. They also had a good amount of playable staples that often are needed for deck building to make your commander decks function. As it always is with reprints and new set releases, timeliness is important when looking to buy. The difference between a card selling for $1 and being out of your price range can happen overnight, and some cards, like the ones on this list, can stay expensive for months and suddenly drop into budget ranges. And when you see a good price on those staples and finishers, it's a good idea to take advantage of it. The first card I want to talk about is Lauren of the Third Path at $3.50. She's been selling for upwards of $10 since she was released because of her unique abilities in the color. She's a white reclamation sage with just a little upside if you absolutely need some card draw. The card draw requires you have an opponent draw with you, so it's not always the best if you're the problem at the table, but otherwise can be used politically to garner favors from your opponents. The artifact and enchantment destruction is really the main draw from Lauren, and if it didn't have the draw tech, she'd still be powerful enough to play on her own. White doesn't have a lot of good ETB artifact and enchantment destruction. There's plenty of enchantment destruction, but not a lot of artifact destruction in the color. She's useful in a lot of decks, and really should be a staple in the color. Almost any deck that has creatures and is playing white is a deck that she'd be good in. She can also be blinked, reanimated, copied, etc., but even without doing those things, Lauren is often necessary just to cover your bases against problem artifacts and enchantments. Next up is Benny Brack's Zoologist. Benny is priced at a little over $4 right now, and that is a steal. It was one of those special commander cards that were only released in collector and set boosters during New Capenna, so he's been pretty rare. The price on this card has been pretty high for a long time. I want to say I saw him being sold at over $15, so being available for $4 is great. I think the card is exceptional. It's card draw in white, which still can be a little spotty depending on the deck archetype. He fits in any deck that creates tokens. He's a staple in that strategy. One of the best cards in those strategies because he can repeatedly draw you cards. The Convoke is also very convenient for the strategy, being able to be played at a discount or even for free if you have some white tokens around to tap. Comeuppance is a fun card that has been surprisingly expensive. It's priced at a little over $1 right now, as opposed to the 10 or so it was before the reprint. It was only printed once before Karlov Manor, so that may have contributed to its scarcity. I think a lot of players love these type of gotcha cards like Deflecting Palm or Ink Shield, because they can lead to surprise blowouts for your opponents. I hear a lot of people speak fondly of them, even when they aren't guaranteed to be useful all the time. Comeuppance is pretty good, and can destroy creatures that attack you and save your life when someone alpha strikes. 4 mana is kind of a lot to hold up, but that doesn't stop people from loving Ink Shield, and at least you can Sunforger it. If you've been wanting a copy, now is a great time to pick one up. Next up is Farewell. It's around $7. I feel like it's hovered between $7 and $10 since its release, which is always kind of a surprise for me. Farewell is the premium board wipe, one of the best board wipes, even with a 6 mana cost, and the best board wipe when it comes to its effect. It exiles every single problem you might have, including those in graveyards. It's a staple in Commander and will likely remain one for a very long time. I don't foresee them power creeping out of playability for a long time either. If they don't keep reprinting this in precons semi-regularly, it has the potential to go up in price because almost anyone could use it. Welcoming Vampire is very cheap right now. It's at 68 cents. That's extremely affordable for one of half a dozen or so good draw enablers in white. It's seen a lot of reprints and I'm glad it has. I hope it stays at bulk pricing even though it's anything but bulk. It's playable in a lot of commander decks that have small creatures, and with the format having sped up over the years, 1, 2, and 3 drops are getting more common and necessary to keep up with the table. This card is a good card to have a couple copies of because it's a staple that will help your decks run and can slot in pretty easily when you need it. It works with tokens too. If your commander has 2 or less power, it might be a good include. Next up is Alandra Skydreamer. Alandra is a little over $1 after the reprint. It was printed only once in one of the unpopular Jumpstart sets, so it was actually a bit rare and expensive for a while. It seems like not a lot of those sets were getting opened, so there have been quite a few of those Jumpstart exclusives that got overlooked and overpriced. Now that Alandra is at a reasonable price, it's worth a look to test out in decks. It makes strike tokens and fits in the new second draw each turn strategy that's been showing up on more and more cards lately. Try it out, and if it's good, let me know. Kappa Cannoneer has also been reprinted and is less than $1. I think Kappa Cannoneer is a reasonable finisher for artifact decks. It can be played at a discount with Improvise, has a big ward cost so it's hard to target, and can grow and become unblockable. It's a great card to break through board stalls and takes out opponents with good defenses. It can grow very quickly too, gaining a +1/+1 counter for every artifact entering the battlefield, including tokens. It's not limited to once per turn either, so if you can make several treasures or artifact tokens in one turn, it can grow into a massive finisher. I like to play it in almost every artifact deck I make because it's a problem that your opponents have to deal with. I'm glad the price is so low now. Rise of the Dark Realms is only $11 after the reprint. $11 is still a lot, but Rise of the Dark Realms has commanded a huge price tag for years. It's one of the biggest, flashiest spells in the format that Timmies love. With a haste enabler, it can win the game on the spot, and it sure makes you feel good when you get to cast it. I think the high mana cost is a little too much and don't personally have it in any decks, but if you want to give it a shot, $11 is the lowest I've seen it in a long time. Without other reprints, it's liable to grow in price again. Reanimate was reprinted in the same precon and is $12 right now. Reanimate, unlike Rise of the Dark Realms, is an extremely efficient and powerful spell. Just about the cheapest it could cost. 1 mana to reanimate any creature from a graveyard is extremely good. So good that it's seen plenty of play in legacy reanimator builds. If you're playing any kind of reanimator strategy, it's correct to be playing reanimate. It's simply the best at what it does. It's not even limited to targeting creatures in your own graveyard. You can kill an opponent's creature and reanimate it yourself, or just snipe something ridiculous somebody incidentally milled or discarded. $12 is still pricey, but it's reasonable for reanimate. It's always going to be in demand. Necromancy is another reanimator spell that's been reprinted, and for the first time with current wording and nice new artwork. It's $7, half as cheap as the next cheapest version. It's also a very powerful reanimator card that goes in all the same decks that Reanimate does. It's also one of the enchantments used in the World Gorger Dragon combo. If you're in the market for necromancy spells or think you will be, now would be a great time to pick up necromancy because it's unlikely to get any cheaper anytime soon. Jessica's Will just got a reprint and is still sitting over $17. Jessica's Will is one of the best red cards in the format. It can give you a huge boost in mana early and put you way ahead with the mana, and provide you with card advantage in the form of impulse draw. That's huge for red, which still has a lot of trouble maintaining card advantage throughout a game. Jessica's Will seems like it might be one of those big ticket cards they reprint once in a long span of time in a precon, and then not reprint again for a while. Another card they did this with was Chandra's Ignition from one of the Lost Cavern of Ixalan precons. Jessica's Will is a powerful staple that is going to remain in demand, and if they don't reprint it soon or often, this might be the lowest it'll be for a good while. Neheb the Eternal is just over $1. It is another card that's been pricey for most of its existence and then tanked with this reprint. In fact, the next cheapest version of it is over $5. Now's a great time to pick one up if you have a use for it. Neheb's ability grants you a huge burst of mana and can be comboed with. It's got some pretty good uses, check it out. Next up is Beast Whisperer. With its many reprints, it is still about $2. Beast Whisperer is just that much of a staple and a card that goes in almost every deck that plays green. If your deck is playing a good number of creatures, it should go in. And like other staples like 3 Visits, with a reprint it will go down. Over a couple months it'll climb up a couple dollars more. Any avid deck builder can't have enough copies of Beast Whisperer, so if you're in the market for one or think you might need one for a deck in a few months, now might be a time to shop for it since it's just been reprinted. Seedborn Muse was also in the precons and doesn't get reprinted too often. It's almost $9 after the reprint. Seedborn Muse is a very strong card with an effect that doesn't come on a whole lot of other cards. And the last time they printed another version, Prophet of Crufix, it got banned for being too powerful. Seedborn Muse kind of allows you to play extra turns during your opponent's turns as long as you have instance and instant speed abilities. It's a lot of fun to play around with, give it a shot. Next up is Toskibearer of Secrets, another green staple. It's been around $10 for most of its existence, and it's worth the price. I'm so glad this got reprinted, and so great that it's only a little over $5 right now. Just like Beast Whisperer, it should go in almost any green deck with creatures. Green's card draw can still be limited, and Toski is one of the cards that belongs in a lot of decks to help it play more smoothly. With a lot of little creatures, Toski can draw you tons of cards. I recommend you play it more. Adrix and Nev Twincasters is another great reprint, making it $4. It's been a pricey and powerful little card since its first printing in a Strixhaven Commander Precon, and besides a Secret Lair printing, that was its only printing. Adrix and Nev being only $4 for a token doubling effect is insane, considering the other token doubler enchantments are always like $40 or more. Adrix and Nev fit in all those other token decks as redundancy, or has a unique ability to lead its own commander deck. Pick up a copy of this card if you don't have one. $4 to copy tokens repeatedly is almost unheard of. Next up is Chulan, Teller of Tales at less than $1. Chulan is one of the extra powerful and oppressive leaders of the Eldraine Brawl decks, and just like the others can lead a generically good deck or fit in any deck in the colors as a good stuff include. It's really strong and it's worth the 78 cents. Jazella, Blade of Gold Knight is 61 cents. Jazella has been a commander favorite since its release and has been played a whole lot. Her being at less than $1 makes her a great budget option. She's got a huge swingy effect and almost acts like a Phyrexian Praetor, where she gives you a powerful boost and then kind of does the opposite, giving your opponents a debilitating nerf. She's a damage doubler that protects you and your permanents, and although a lot more damage doublers have been printed in the last decade, Jazella is still a great big beater that can hit for 10 in the air by herself. She's a good creature to reanimate or otherwise cheat out, and a lot of classic fun. Coma, Cosmos Serpent, is another big, splashy finisher and is less than $3 right now. That's the cheapest I've ever seen it. Coma's the kind of card that can elicit groans from the rest of the table when you play it, because if they don't work together, or one opponent isn't especially prepared, Coma is not going away easily. Every turn you let it stay on the table is digging the hole deeper, and you'll be lucky to get out of it. Coma is uncounterable, protects itself, taps down the board, and hits hard with its big body and the tokens it makes every turn for free. It gets out of hand quickly and can finish a game on its own if your opponents can't answer it. $3 to stress out your friends on game night? It's a bargain, trust me. Lastly, I want to mention Academy Manufactor. It's been reprinted a couple of times and is still $6. This card goes in most decks that can create clues, treasures, and food, and with the increase in printings of cards that create those permanents, Academy Manufactor has been more and more vital to include in those decks. It makes so many tokens and so many permanents that you can sacrifice or copy or turn into creatures to attack. It's just a ridiculous card that gets out of hand. I hope they keep reprinting it, and I wouldn't be surprised if even with a few more reprints it keeps hovering around this price. But without reprints, it's going to shoot up, unfortunately. Well, that's it for today. What did you think of the cards on this list? Were there any cards I forgot about that are worth another look? Any other reprints you think are deserving of staple status? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in other Magic content and other card suggestions for Commander, you can subscribe and check out these other videos. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you have a great day.